my talk today is for the inner child, because I think our inner child selves will enjoy this lesson. Because the inner child is seeking wisdom. You know, maybe wisdom that it did not receive when it was young and in childhood, or maybe some wisdom to refute some things that it did learn. All summer long, we have been talking about spiritual wisdom and how to follow it as it relates to our relationship with the world of abundance and the energy that's all around us. And each one of us kind of feels like an individual path that we're taking, trying to discover something that will help us continue to find new blessings as we go through our lives. But I want us to remember that the overall wisdom that we are seeking is the truth that we are actually not individuals at all. We are unique expressions of the one life, the one energy, kind of interpreting and relating to the universe in our own way, but we are part of one big thing. You know, I like to remind you that we're one center for spiritual living, one. And there are more of them all over the world teaching these very similar messages that we teach, this big truth of oneness. And we may each be in our own cities and countries, but we're the expressions of this one big organization. As individualized expression, we influence the world around us in our own way. See where I'm going? But we're individuals, but we're also a part of something bigger, both as people and as like a center. So each minister and each community is necessary to the whole, and likewise each member is important and necessary to the community. It kind of builds. You are important and necessary in this community. So as we explore the topics that we explore related to spirituality and wisdom, it becomes a very, very personal lesson. So where are you in your quest for wisdom? You've been around here for more than a minute. You know that we are always teaching that you are in fact a spiritual being zipped into this magic suit to have a human experience. And as a spiritual being in the middle of all this humanness, where do you find your spiritual food? Where can you find some nuggets of truth and wisdom as you walk around on the physical plane? Where can your inner child find a place to discover things and heal and grow? And my invitation to you this morning is to find it everywhere. Find wisdom everywhere. I believe that the world is like teeming with rich wisdom every turn we make. God is in each of us. Spirit is interacting with itself as we interact with each other. So God is constantly speaking to us, showing us information we need to move through our lives in alignment, giving us opportunities to learn more about ourselves in relationship to the universe and to everyone around us. So storytellers and philosophers and songwriters and children and authors and preachers and all the people on the bus, they're all sources of great spiritual wisdom. And if you didn't know that, you just aren't looking in the right way, with the right ears, or reading with the light or the right viewpoint, or looking with the right eyes. Wisdom is absolutely everywhere. And I'm going to give you a very good example of wisdom that's hiding in plain sight for everyone to find. So one of my favorite phrases is, of all times, is once upon a time. So whenever those words would come out of, my mother's mouth or a teacher's or my grandmother's, or I knew I was going to go on a journey once upon a time. And sometimes it was a magical journey, and sometimes it was a mysterious journey or a lovely journey, but it was all going to happen in a story. Because you see, stories are how we pass down wisdom and our life lessons to another generation, to another group of people. And some of these stick around in our race consciousness because they contain these powerful messages. My mom would always ask me, what is the moral of the story, Laine? Right? What's the moral? In other words, how can I use this story to understand my life? And so that's what I want you walking around asking yourself. What is the lesson in this piece of information I just got? Why did I hear it? Why did this come across my Facebook feed, my world, my television screen to me? Why? What is it? What is there for me? So today I want to tell you a story, and I want to see if we can find some wisdom in it to apply to our spiritual understanding of life. It's a story you're all very familiar with, and it's a story I've told many times. And in fact, I even shared it here shortly after I became your minister years and years ago. Maybe you happened to be there on that Sunday back in, I think it was 2018. So if you were, you might remember this. If not, I hope you find a new way of looking at it if you did, and if you didn't, welcome to the party. It's a little story. It's a story about a little girl named Goldilocks. Okay, anyone remember this story? Right? So now there are many different versions of the story, and all of them have little slight differences, but the basic story always sounds something like this. Once upon a time, there was a little girl, and she had golden hair. Aptly, she was named Goldilocks. And Goldilocks was adventurous and curious about life. And one day, she asked her mom if she could go pick flowers. And her mother said she could, but she should not go into the woods where the bears lived. However, once she got to hunting flowers, curiosity got the best of her. And, of course, Goldilocks ventured out into the woods. And once she was there, she came upon a house, the house of the three bears, who had gone out for a walk. And like any curious child would do, Goldilocks went right on into the house, right? And inside the house, adventurous Goldilocks tried the chairs in the living room and found one to be too hard, one to be too soft, and the one she found to be just right, she broke. Then Goldilocks went into the kitchen and tried the porridge that she found in the kitchen. We know what happened. One was too hot, one was too cold, and one was just right. And she ate the just right one all up. Then she tried the three beds that she found in the bedroom. One of them was too hard, one of them was too soft, and one of them was just right. And she fell asleep in the one that was just right. And while she slept, the bears came home and discovered the porridge was missing, the chair was broken, and here was Goldilocks sleeping in the baby bear's bed, right? So she woke up and she saw the bears, and Goldilocks ran home to her mother, and she lived happily ever after. Remember that story, right? So I want to break down the story and see if we can relate to these various elements in the story kind of one by one. Let's see if we can glean any spiritual wisdom here, and let's see if we can see ourselves right now in this story. Let's see how a new perspective may touch or teach our inner child. Okay, so let's look at Goldilocks herself first. This character represents the archetype of the innocent one. We are each born into that innocence, but we're also born with an internal urge to grow, an internal urge to explore and evolve, a deep-seated natural longing to learn about this physical universe, about this human experience. Within each one of us is that push that takes us away from our original place to explore the world we find ourselves very curious about, right? We have this internal urge to go beyond our current level of wisdom. Ernest Holmes would call that our natural calling to evolve. So while our proverbial backyard may be all lovely and safe, we're constantly peering over the fence to know a greater experience. Our evolution actually starts in that backyard. So maybe at the beginning of the summer program, you felt like you had an internal urge to learn and grow and explore these new topics with curiosity. I certainly have felt like we have shared that natural calling to evolve and look at all these things in a new way. And this story reminds us that we're all pulled, all of us, to greater experiences and new understandings about life. That's what Goldilocks represents to me. And the other character in the story is the mother, okay, the mother. So there's this archetypal mother figure, and that mother figure is always seeking to protect us, always reminding us of the dangers that are out there in the greater world, while at the same time encouraging our growth, right? And we each have a relationship with maternal energy or mother energy in our lives. each of us have to grapple with healing of that relationship. We have to figure out that person that nurtured us and fed us, but also perhaps overprotected us or sheltered us or told us things we've never really been able to figure out. That figure that encourages us to grow, but not too much. In the story, the mother lets Goldilocks go outside, but she cautions her to stay within the safety of the backyard, inside the fence of her influence. It's that universal balance that so many parents struggle with, and in turn, we all struggle with as children and even adult children. We struggle with that. Keep them safe, encourage them to grow, back and forth. How far can we let another person go into their own wisdom and their own experience of life and still hold them close? When is protecting and guiding suddenly stifling and overbearing or too controlling? And as I shared several weeks ago, I actually wrote about the spiritual backyard and how most parents feel very uncomfortable with their children playing and exploring beyond their own understanding, their own spiritual path, their own understanding of God that they have laid out for their offspring. The parent's relationship with God works for them, and they love their children enough to want them to have the same experience, right? As a parent myself, I had to consciously let go and allow and encourage my daughter to be free to explore her own ideas of spirituality, her own path, her own relationship with the divine. And sometimes over these past few months, maybe you have worked to clear out those parental messages related to money and time and social wealth and enoughness, and explore beyond what they may have even been able to understand. I've watched you all grapple with some of that this summer. I could spend the entire hour talking about the mother figure and that relationship, but I want to go on to the other elements of the story. So Goldilocks pushes forward, onward, her curiosity drawing her into the possibilities of deeper knowledge. Something was drawing her deeper and deeper into the woods. And when she finds the bear's home empty, she enters on her solitary journey of self-discovery, as we all do in life. And these wise bears, they've left several lessons waiting for her to explore. And these lessons are universal ones. All the things we are seeking to learn about in this lifetime of evolving were set out for her in their house. So the first place she went was into the living room. Let's talk about the living room. She starts sitting in the chairs. So in the living room of life is where we explore the lessons about the support that we need in life, the physical structures that are necessary to build our life, the metaphysical chairs, if you will. And in this part of our evolution, we're always looking for our supply, our support, in this multitude of sources that we have available. We look for that support from our family structures. We look for that support from our careers. We look for and build all sorts of elaborate structures and situations as we move through life. And sometimes what happens, sometimes we throw up our hands and we watch all of the structures that we have built just kind of crash down around us, kind of like a house of cards. Some of our experiences in our structures are too hard. They're too complicated, too controlled. They're just too hard. And those kinds of structures, they just don't satisfy us, and we keep looking. We don't stop with too hard. And then sometimes we go too far and we go into too soft. They're insubstantial and even non-existent. Sometimes we refuse and give up. We refuse to enter another structure because we fear their disillusion, their temporariness. We shy away from another relationship or another career, or from pursuing our desired career for fear of failure. We pull nothing substantial around us in that soft part of our life. And that divine discontent finally pushes us to a spiritual remembering that God is our source. God is our support, our perfect chair that holds us in our abundant, inherent nature. We move from structure to structure in the living room of our lives. Someday we will find a job or a relationship that will give us that feeling of abundance or that experience of harmony. That's what we are looking for. However, it is when we sit in the knowing, that internal knowing, that God is our source, our good, our abundance, our harmony, our structure, all of that is in spirit, and we can be comfortable. It is in that knowing that we can rest and allow the divine to support our very existence, including our livelihood, our relationships, our homes, our careers, our everything. That happens in the living room of life. But wait, Laine, the chair broke. Wait, the chair broke. Here's the thing. Life will never allow you to sit for too long before your inner urge to grow urges you to keep looking. And often, if you stubbornly sit too long, the structure will no longer support you and it will break. Can I get an amen? So I've watched you this summer. I've watched you all summer visioning and talking about new structures and ideas that you wish to partner with Spirit to create for yourself. You're doing all of that in the living room of life, trusting God to co-create with you the just right feeling in your world. And then Goldilocks left the living room and she went into the kitchen. So our heroine moves the story out of the living room into the kitchen of life, and Goldilocks starts trying the porridge. So porridge, or food of any kind that you find in a story, if you're going to metaphysically interpret it, it symbolizes the hunger for love in life. So haven't you heard the expression, food is love? Food is love. So it is in the kitchen of life that our souls seek to find nourishment, our friendships, our relationships of all kinds. That means romantic relationships, but friendships, and all those in our wider circle of community. When we are hungry for love, we're trying all these different bowls of possibility. We're trying to discover what we find to be just right for ourselves. Many of us spend a lot of time in our evolution of life in the kitchen because love is a lifelong lesson. And I'm sure that some of you can relate to a relationship that's too hot. We won't go there. But I'm also confident that we have each had that feeling of a love relationship being too cold, right? We're seeking and we're searching and we're trying to find what we have defined to be just right. And for a long time, most of us are looking for it outside of ourselves, in the heart of someone else. It usually takes some experiences of love on the human level before we come to a craving for a deeper kind of love and we turn to Spirit within. It is here that we can satisfy that craving through a remembering that the love of God and love of self is always there. It's internal and eternal. We're learning that deepest love is not found out there somewhere, but in here within ourselves, waiting to be expressed outwardly. And we learn that our relationships with other human beings only reflect the love that we have for ourselves and for God itself. That's just right. That's just right. And when we feel it, we know it. And we can attract it to us because we are it. So it is a universal trying of the porridge of the in the kitchen of love in the kitchen of life. And then lastly, Goldilocks continues her adventure of self-discovery by approaching the universal life lesson of finding the right bed in the bedroom of evolution. It is here in the bedroom of life that we learn the lesson of different levels of consciousness as symbolized by the beds. So as we seek our spiritual truth, and we're seeking this connection with something higher than ourselves, we often try different levels or different ways of experiencing consciousness. Some of us even spend years of our lives trying to alter our consciousness with substances and distractions and yearnings of all kinds. We also crawl into different beds in search of different teachings, different rituals, different approaches to the sacred until we find the one that fits us best. And when we do it, we know we are home and we know it is just right. It is in the right bed of consciousness that we find the space to love ourselves and know our true identity as an expression of God. When we crawl into that bed of love and light, we can experience the perfect rest as we know that it is all well. And it is in the right bed that we can dream all of our dreams that we've ever dreamt for ourselves. So in the bedroom, in the most private place in our house of life, we encounter that personal relationship with God, that understanding, that God within. It is in the bedroom of consciousness that we have been exploring together as a community this whole summer. I also want to point out the number 3. So Goldie interacts with the number 3 throughout the story, doesn't she? Using the number 3 is so very common in wisdom teachings. It symbolizes completion of a cycle. It symbolizes wholeness, creativity, harmony. We have a lot of 3s in our spirituality as well. There are often 3 phases in a cycle: beginning, middle, and end, past, present, future. Notice whenever you hear a story or a joke, a religious teaching, how often you find 3 steps, 3 characters, 3 seasons, 3 characters walking into a bar. It's always the number 3. In our story, there are 3 bears, 3 chairs, 3 bowls of porridges, 3 beds, and that signals that our character is going to reach a completion of some sort by the 3rd part of the cycle. You'll see that pattern in so many childhood stories. There are always 3 of the same things, like 3 little bears, 3 little pigs, 3 blind mice, whatever. The truth is that there are many, many rooms in the house of our evolution. There are so many lessons that we are evolving and experiencing in all the houses of universal life, but our story only focuses on 3 of the rooms. Do you want to talk about the bears? Bears. What about those 3 bears? So 3 bears can symbolically mean many things as well. The papa bear and the mama bear, to me, symbolizes the male and female energy and wisdom teachers and perspectives that are available to offer us different possibilities on our journey towards ourselves. These are pieces of wisdom that there are so many that we can only experience from male energy. The male directive perspective through the aspects of dominance and power. Those are so many things that we learn in life. There are also pieces of wisdom that we can only find available to us through that feminine, the divine feminine, through that receptive perspective, through the creative process, through the submissive experience of surrender. It's all female maternal energy. And I believe that the baby bear represents the self that comes into this world knowing the truth before conditioning makes us forget. We're all trying to return to that truest self that is the perfect blend of that male divine energy and female divine energy, the perfect spiritually connected self. We must embrace all aspects of ourselves if we are to find our own personal wisdom and the expression of truth in our lives. We've got to have it all. For in each of these symbols, the porridge, the chair, and the bed, Goldilocks always found her truth, her just right, with the baby bear's way of living. His porridge, his chair, his bed, or his knowing of God's love, God's support, God's truth and consciousness. It is the universal truth that we're all coming home to. We're all coming home to baby bear stuff. It's just what we're doing. So we're each on a journey to discover our just right, our spiritual truth. It's always available to us when we follow our intuition into the world of spirit. And eventually we come to understand that my just right will look very different from your just right. We're all learning to follow our own bliss, our own guiding light. And we get in a lot of trouble when we try to be comfortable in someone else's idea of the right chair, or eat someone else's porridge, or sleep in someone else's bed. So what brought you to these woods of self-discovery? What pieces of wisdom are you still looking for? Are you still trying to leave the spiritual backyard of your youth or your parents? See, here's the thing. You have experiences in all 3 of the rooms I discussed today. What does your living room look like right now? When you look around at the structures of your life, what lessons are calling you into perhaps a different career or a different relationship or a different way of living? You're working on discovering God as your source, and you're allowing the structures in your life to reform themselves through spirituality. And as you spend time in the kitchen of your life, are you working on understanding how relationships work and how God shows up in each and every one of them? What do you need to remember right now about knowing that the only source of love is within yourself? Relationships are only mirrors that reflect that back to you. They can't be anything more than that. And perhaps you're still tossing and turning in the bed of consciousness that is either too hard or too soft. In the bedroom, you're being asked to remember that you are divine, and you can rest in that knowing in every single moment of your life. Whatever you're discovering, you're in the right place, in the right room, and certainly in the right house. And before I close, I want to point out that my 5 least favorite words in childhood stories are, "they lived happily ever after." Because that phrase implies that once we get everything lined up, once we find the right person to love, the right job, the right weight to weigh, we pray the right way, all of that, will eventually get to coast into the sunset, kind of happy as a clam, right? And our souls want to keep growing and keep seeking wisdom. And perhaps that's why the just right chair broke. That's why the just right porridge was all eaten up. And the bears woke Goldilocks up when she was in the right bed. She had to keep learning because she's alive. However, we can know that once we have found the wisdom we seek in all these rooms, we can return home, like all Goldilocks do, to live a more fulfilling life in God as we continue to grow back at home. See, wisdom is everywhere, all around us. Your inner child knows it, and so does mine. Will you pray with me? We take a deep breath, a deep baby bear breath. And I remember in this moment that we are all on this journey of discovery. We are all in the houses of wisdom, seeking new information and new ways of being, and it's all available to us. I know that as we look around our lives, we find that peace, that nugget of wisdom that we need whenever we need it. And I know that our inner child continues to grow, continues to heal, continues to evolve and express and learn in this life that it is living. And I'm so thankful that I get to walk this walk with these people in this room. It is a beautiful, beautiful journey of learning and discovery, and I am so grateful. I release, I let go, and so it is.